Hello, my name is Coach Jeremy from Dulles Airport, here to discuss the fundamentals of imagery. In this video, I'm going to provide a quick refresher on what imagery is before taking a deeper dive and exploring how you can use imagery to get better at what you do. Before we begin, a quick reminder that this is just one of many videos that the Coggin team has created for you as an additional resource to encourage your growth as a TSO through the use of cognitive skills. I strongly recommend checking out the other videos at your leisure. With that said, let's get started. From the field of sports psychology, imagery is a skill in which a performer uses mental rehearsal as a form of practice. Using a variety of senses, you, the TSO, can use imagery to mentally rehearse a skill, or even for how you might react in a certain scenario. If weightlifting is for strengthening your muscles, you can think of imagery as weightlifting for your brain. Imagery is already used by many types of performers, including athletes, soldiers, musicians, and even surgeons. Much like those types of performers, you, the TSO, can use imagery as a tool to accelerate your expertise. The following fundamentals of imagery are described to further explain the skill and to provide a roadmap for how you, the performer, can best utilize it. The first fundamental of imagery to consider is the point of view that you as a performer want to use. One point of view you can use is a first-person perspective. With a first-person perspective, you are mentally rehearsing a skill or scenario as if you are viewing it through your own eyes. For example, if you were imaging the process of driving your car, a first-person perspective would mean that you're looking out at the steering wheel, the road, or anything else that might be relevant. On the contrary, you could also use a third-person perspective. With a third-person perspective, you're mentally rehearsing a skill or scenario as if you're watching a video of yourself. And continuing with the example of driving a car, imaging that with a third-person perspective might mean that you're viewing yourself through the windshield, or perhaps from the passenger seat. As it pertains to the point of view you should use when it comes to practicing imagery, you may want to try out both to see which one you prefer. When using imagery to rehearse a new skill, a first-person perspective might be more beneficial, as it'll give yourself a more thorough awareness of how it feels to actually execute the skill. If you're looking to refine a skill, a third-person perspective might be more beneficial. With a third-person perspective, it'll be easier to self-identify any errors that you wish to correct. The next fundamental of imagery, and perhaps the most important one, is vividness. Vividness is the realism that you bring to your imagery by tying in the multiple senses. By making a habit of combining multiple senses throughout your imagery, as opposed to using just a visual piece, you'll be rehearsing skills and scenarios that will better translate to the real world. The more lifelike our imagery becomes, the more prepared we'll be when it's time to actually execute certain skills and react to certain situations. Let's consider the various stimuli that you, the TSO, are likely to encounter as you leave your pre-shift briefing and walk towards your assigned lane. The first thing that likely comes to your mind are the sights, things such as the different security stations, the movement of passengers and carry-on items, and any relevant signage. However, the stimuli you're observing isn't limited to just the visual sphere. You also have sounds, whether they're coming from overlapping conversations, the loudspeaker, or machinery. You have tactile sensations, such as that of snapping on your gloves in preparation to begin working. Even smell and taste, such as the specific scent of your terminal or the flavor of your chewing gum. They all play a role in creating the full sensory picture. Being in tune with all of these different senses is what we mean when we're talking about vividness. Vividness is critical because it helps a performer get the most out of their imagery practice. such as using an imagery script to improve at a specific skill or in reacting to a certain situation. Let's say, for example, that a TSO struggles with the X-ray when there's high passenger volume and would like to use imagery as a way to practice dealing with that type of scenario. That TSO would likely visualize things such as a backed up passenger line, carry-on baggage, and of course, the X-ray machine itself. Additionally, they might imagine the groans of restless passengers, sounds of operating machinery, or the commands coming from the divestiture officer that is working alongside them. They could also incorporate the smells of common carry-on items, or the sweatiness of their palms if this is typically an anxiety-inducing situation. The point is, the more vivid and realistic a situation feels when practicing imagery, the more equipped a TSO will feel to handle the situation the next time it comes up during their real-life shift. Finally, we have the third fundamental of imagery, which is controllability. Controllability refers to how well a performer can alter or manipulate the images that they produce. There are a couple of key aspects to this. The first aspect involves being in tune with the various sensory details that comprise your image. That includes being able to move your image through a series of events, as opposed to being stuck at a single point in time. So instead of imagining a still frame, you're creating a miniature movie in your mind. The second aspect of controllability is how well a performer can form positive outcomes in the images that they are creating. For example, let's say a TSO is imaging a pat-down routine. If during the image they are struggling to follow correct protocol and the passenger is feeling violated, the TSO would be demonstrating a low level of controllability in their image. On the contrary, if during the image the TSO is executing the proper movements and no issues arise from the pat-down, they would be demonstrating a high level of controllability in their image. It should be noted that controllability in imagery is correlated with real-life expertise. That is to say, the better a performer is in a given domain, the greater control they'll have over their images. For example, LeBron James can imagine a sequence in a basketball game much better than your average Joe at the YMCA. The same idea can be applied to TSA. The veteran TSO who has been with TSA since its inception can imagine the scenario of neutralizing a threat much better than the newbie who just got their first stripe. In summary, point of view, vividness, and controllability are the three main pieces of the imagery pie. Point of view is the perspective a performer employs during their image, such as a first-person perspective or a third-person perspective. Vividness is the use of multiple senses by a performer to make their image as realistic as possible, not just what they might see, but also what they might hear, feel, or even taste or smell. And controllability is how a performer can manipulate the images that they're producing. This means creating a short film rather than just a picture, as well as creating positive outcomes over the course of that short film. So, how exactly do we use this? If you remember from the intro, imagery is not just a concept or idea, but a mental skill meant to help you improve at your real-life skills. As with any of the skills we teach, regimented repetition will help you get the most out of your imagery practice. I recommend finding a time and place where you can regularly practice imagery using the fundamentals we've reviewed in this video. For example, maybe somewhere in the break room where you have some personal space. Based on a variety of factors, go ahead and create an image of what you can expect to be focusing on when you return to your shift. Perhaps you know that there will be long passenger lines, or that you'll be working at your least favorite station. No matter the case, create an image that best represents what you think you'll be reacting to in real life. Think of your perspective, tie in as many senses as possible, and control the image in a way that allows you to foresee how you would respond to the situation that you have now mentally created. If you make a habit of doing this, your preparation will put you a step ahead of whatever the workplace throws at you that day. As with all the skills we teach here in the CogIn program, practicing imagery regularly can help to accelerate your expertise as a TSO. If you're repeatedly running into the same hurdles at your job, consider imagery as a skill that can help you look at those hurdles in a new, more proactive light. Because just like weights strengthen your muscles, imagery has the ability to strengthen your mind. For more information on imagery and how you can incorporate it into your work, please feel free to reach out to your airport's respective CogIn coaches. To reach myself or Coach Melinda, please note our email addresses displayed in the bottom right corner. Thank you very much for watching.